Hello and welcome back to LTC Heroes Live by Experience Care. My name is Peter Murphy Lewis. I'm your host. I'm excited because today I am wrapping up day one at Florida Healthcare Association with Zechariah, legendary, maybe one of the best names I've ever had on this podcast. He is the nursing home administrator at Lion Care Services. Zechariah, welcome to the program.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Zechariah, I usually start off how you got into long-term care, where you're from, what's your organization. But I want to start off with who is the person that you were most excited to see today when you walked into the convention?
Wow, that is an amazing question.
Who did you want to go up and bear hug?
Who did I want to bear hug? I wanted to bear hug actually my mentor. He comes here once a year. I get to see him. I probably run into him twice a year. And he pretty much trained me and taught me everything I know. And every
Let's give a
time the
shout out.
conference comes, Reginald Eldridge.
What did you learn from Reginald?
Everything. He taught me about financials. He taught me about census growth. He taught me about just being a better person. And then he even helped with personal development of becoming a better man so I could lead correctly.
I love it. I want to sit on this for a minute. I love it. Tell me about your growth process with him. What's the first thing you learned from him? What's the most challenging thing that you learned from him?
The first thing I learned from him was to lead by example. And then he taught me to do that by just watching his ways. He was like, just watch how I communicate with everyone and watch how I get the job done. And then he kind of preached into me that you can't tell people what to do. You can show them what to do. You can make recommendations on what to do. You can train them on how to do it, but you can't tell them to do it. So that's something I took with me. So I get out on the floor with him here, passing trays, sweeping the floor, we paint walls. It don't matter what it is. I can do the same job as everybody else.
Love it. What's the biggest challenge? What's the hardest thing for you to learn that maybe he had to tell you 3, 5 times and you're like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna get it.
The hardest thing, the biggest challenge I learned from him was how to continue to operate in chaos, even though it might not seem like chaos, but to operate in chaos, because you can have many things going on, 10 things at a time, 15 at a time, but so everybody's watching you. So you really got to just stay calm and just tackle everything one at a time, one task at a time. So
Zechariah, we're going to stay on you for a minute because it's not every day that I get to talk to someone so self-aware as you, especially someone as young and a man. I feel like men, sometimes we struggle to be vulnerable.
Right.
Where did you learn that skill?
I learned to be vulnerable from my mother and my grandma. And I learned it from them, from just being around them and them constantly just talking to me and expressing themselves. And then they didn't allow me to get away with saying, I'm okay. I'm all right. Yeah, it's fine. It was like, what's fine about it? What's okay about it? What do you like about it? So just living with my mom and being around my grandma coming up.
Now, tell me about how you got into long-term care.
Okay, so I got into long-term care by complete luck. I majored in marketing at University of South Florida. Then I just so happened to be walking across campus one day, and I ran into this lady named Dr. Catherine Heyer, the late Dr. Catherine Heyer, and she just walked up to me. I don't know why she came up to me. She was like, "Hey, where you going?" And I was like, I'm just walking around going to get something to eat. And we had a job fair at that moment. A major fair was called. So she had a board and she explained the long-term care administration major, which prepares you to be a nursing home administrator. Then she showed me the courses, and most of the classes I took because it was on the business side. And then she started explaining the rest of them that was related to aging and death and dying. And then I was like, I don't know. And she was like, well, who raised you? And I was like, yeah, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. And then she was like, so did you take them to their appointments? I'm like, yeah, I took them to this appointment. She like, did she have you get on the roof and clean her gutters before it cut the grass? I'm like, yeah, I did that too. And then it turns out she was like, well, you're doing it already on a small scale. So what I want you to do is pretty much turn everybody into your grandparents. And that's what it went from. She took me in the program and she was with me throughout my whole undergraduate time as my mentor. And it was amazing.
Wow, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Is there a specific moment where the stars align, you're working in long-term care and you realize that you were destined for this, that everything that was pushed you towards that instance with Dottie, is that what you said? Last name Dot?
Yep. Reginald Eldridge. Oh, Dr. Catherine Hyatt.
Captain. Yeah,
Yep.
and when those stars align, that you're like, oh, I know why I'm here.
Yeah.
Can you remember the story, the moment?
Um, Great question. So the moment was one day I was at work. No, one day I was at a friend house, and then I told my friend I'm getting ready to go home, and I left his house and I went to work. From that moment, I was like, okay, I see what's going on with, because now for me, work doesn't feel like work. It just feel like I have two homes: my regular home with my immediate family, and then my other home with all my grandparents who need me to make sure I come and look after them. So it doesn't feel like work to me anymore.
This industry doesn't have a sexy connotation, a sexy perception. You're a young, smart man. When you tell your friends and you tell your peers, or you go out on a date, or maybe you're married, or and you say, I work in long-term care, and people are like, what's that? And why are you doing it? How do you translate to them, someone who's never done the work that you do, why this is special?
Yeah, so this is hilarious because every time I'm talking to friends or even my siblings and they talk about what I do, it's always a long conversation. They're like, oh, okay. So I always tell them when they say, so what is that? I say, I'm a nursing home administrator. They say, okay, that's great. What is that? I tell them, okay, so picture this. I'm a social worker. I'm a firefighter. I'm a maintenance the guy. I could do lawn. I'm also an accountant, and I do a little clinical work in my scope if you need it done. So explaining to them that it's really just a job of just living and taking care of your family. So that's all it is. I tell them I don't even know. It's just a little bit of everything.
Zechariah, when Kristen came over from the Florida Healthcare Association and introduced you, she said, Peter, Zechariah is the next generation of the up and coming next leaders. What do you feel in terms of a burden? What's the cross that you bear to improve care in Florida? One generation gave you this far. What are you going to do in the next 10 years?
Sorry about that. I take it on as I don't see it as a burden or anything. It doesn't even feel like any pressure, because from how I'm seeing it is, as long as I just continue to do what I'm doing, taking care of my family, and my family is the staff at the building that I work at, it's the residents at the building, the residents, family members. So long as I just can stick to my character, my core, my values, and just take care of people, help people any way I can, I think in the future it's it's light work. Don't tell nobody I said that.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Someone's going to throw an extra
Yep.
shift at you if they hear that.
Yep.
As we wrap it up, Zachary, I want to ask you, what have you learned about yourself working in long-term care?
Ooh, that's an amazing question. What have I learned about myself? I learned that I don't quit. I learned that I like a challenge. I learned that I like high stress. I like chaos in a sense. I know I say it's chaos, but chaos is good because chaos makes you grow. If there's no chaos, I don't think you're gonna grow because you're comfortable. You just sitting there, go to motion. So I love the chaos. I love meeting people. I love helping people reach their goals. Like a lot of my team members, when they sometimes they be like, "Hey Zach, I got another offer at another company for a higher ranking job." I'm celebrating them. I don't want to hold you back. I don't want to convince you to stay where you at, even though I love them and want them to stay. But it's all about the people. The better everyone can and move forward is that's what it's all about.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining me on LTC Heroes. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.